Welcome to the Argentinian philosopher. Ideas made simple for everyday life. What is the purpose of the state? Is it here to protect us, control us, or help us flourish? Should governments be strong and absolute, or should they serve the people under strict limitations? These are the questions that have shaped the foundations of political philosophy, and today we are diving into three of the most influential thinkers that have tried to answer them: Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Each of these philosophers had a radically different view of human nature and the purpose of government. Hobbes saw a world of chaos and believed that only a strong authoritarian government can keep society from descending into war. Locke, in contrast, envisioned a government that exists to protect individual rights, one that people could overthrow if it became oppressive. And finally, Rousseau argued that true freedom could only be found through a collective social contract where people govern themselves for the good of all. These ideas laid the foundation for modern governments, from constitutional democracies to centralized states. But which of them, if any, got it right? Let's explore their theories, debates, and impact on the world today. Welcome to the video on modern state. Before these thinkers could determine what kind of government was best, they needed to answer a crucial question. What are humans like without society? To do this, they used a thought experiment called the state of nature, a world without laws, authority, or political institutions. For Hobbes, the state of nature was a nightmare. He described it as a world where life would be poor, solitary, nasty, brutish, and short. Without a strong authority, people would be in constant conflict, driven by self-interest, competition, and fear. Trust would be nearly impossible, and survival would depend on brute force. In Hobbes' view, this anarchy made an absolute ruler necessary, a leviathan to keep everyone in check. Locke saw things differently. He agreed that there was no government in the state of nature, but he rejected the idea that it was pure chaos. Instead, he believed that people were guided by reason and that they have a basic sense of morality. They had natural rights, life, liberty, and property, and often respected them. However, disputes still arose because there was no official system to enforce these rights fairly. That's why Locke believed in limited government, one that existed only to protect these rights. Then comes Rousseau, with perhaps the most radical perspective. He famously declared, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains." Unlike Hobbes and Locke, he believed that humans in the state of nature were pure, peaceful, and happy. It was society itself, with its property inequality and corruption, that created oppression and moral decay. His philosophy focused on restoring freedom through collective governance. With these foundations laid, let's explore their solutions, starting with Hobbes and his vision of authority through fear. Imagine a world where there is no government, no laws, no police, no institutions to maintain order. People fend for themselves. Trust is rare and conflict is constant. This is how Thomas Hobbes envisioned life in the state of nature. Hobbes believed that humans are naturally self-serving and competitive. While we may form relationships, deep down we act out of self-preservation and fear. Without the governing power, society would descend into chaos, where life is, in his famous words, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. This bleak vision of humanity led Hobbes to propose one of the strongest arguments for an absolute sovereign. According to his theory of the social contract, people would surrender some of their freedoms in exchange for peace, stability, and security. In return, the sovereign, whether a king or a governing body, must have total authority to prevent disorder. To Hobbes, the ideal ruler, symbolized in his book Leviathan, had to be all-powerful, capable of making and enforcing laws without opposition. A weak government, he warned, would inevitably fail to maintain order, leading society back into a state of war. Hobbes' ideas are often associated with authoritarianism, but they also influence modern debates on security, surveillance, and the role of government in crisis management. Many political leaders justify a strong state control, arguing that stability requires sacrifice, a direct echo of Hobbes' philosophy. But while Hobbes' vision prioritizes order, John Locke had a very different perspective, one that emphasized individual liberty over absolute authority. John Locke, writing in the wake of the Glorious Revolution, saw government not as a necessary evil, but as a tool to serve the people. His political philosophy is centered on the belief that humans are rational, reasonable, and capable of self-governance. Unlike Hobbes, Locke argued that even in the state of nature, humans possess natural rights that are inherent and inalienable. These include life, the right to protection and security, liberty, the right to personal freedom and autonomy, and property, the right to own, use, and protect possessions. These rights are not granted by the government. They exist rear to it. The purpose of government, according to Locke, is to protect these rights, not to dictate every aspect of life. Here's where Locke makes one of his most influential claims. If a government fails to protect its people's rights or becomes oppressive, the people have the right to overthrow it. This idea was radical for its time, directly challenging the notion of absolute monarchy and divine rule. Locke's principles were instrumental in shaping liberal democracy and constitutional government. His ideas directly influenced the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. Today, his ideas remain the foundation of arguments for civil liberties, human rights, and political accountability. While Locke's vision emphasizes individual rights, Rousseau takes a different approach, one that argues that true freedom comes from collective participation. Jean-Jacques Rousseau took a completely different stance than Hobbes and Locke. While Hobbes saw people as naturally violent and Locke viewed them as rational, Rousseau believed that humans in their original state were pure, peaceful, and happy. He argued that the true corruption of human nature began with the emergence of private property and social inequality. Unlike Locke, who focused on individual liberty, Rousseau believed that true freedom could only be found through collective participation. His solution was the social contract, where individuals enter into an agreement not with the ruler but with each other, submitting their personal interests to the general will of society. To Rousseau, this wasn't about losing freedom but redefining it. People become truly free when they actively participate in creating the laws that govern them. Instead of obeying a ruler, they obey the principles they have collectively agreed upon. Rousseau's ideas were hugely influential in shaping democratic participation, social justice movements, and revolutionary politics. His writings inspired the French Revolution, with its call for liberty, equality, and fraternity. However, his notion of collective decision-making has been used to justify authoritarian rule, where governments claim to act in the name of the general will, even without direct public approval. So, while Rousseau's vision promotes equality and direct democracy, his critics argue that his ideas can be easily manipulated for state control. But how do these three thinkers compare? Let's weigh their ideas side by side. Hobbes, order and security. A strong state is necessary to prevent chaos. Without an absolute authority, society collapses. His philosophy justifies a centralized state and the idea that people should accept authority for the sake of peace. Locke, individual rights and limited governments. Governments exist to protect life, liberty, and property, nothing more. If they violate these rights, they should be removed. Locke's ideas shaped modern democracy and the belief in government accountability. Rousseau, collective freedom and general will. True freedom isn't about individual choice. It's about living in a society where everyone has an equal voice. His ideas led to revolutions, democratic experiments, and social justice movements. So, who was right? All three perspectives are still relevant today. Do we prioritize security, individual rights, or collective well-being? Governments continue to wrestle with these trade-offs, from debates on national security and surveillance to protests over economic inequality and democracy. So, which of these thinkers do you align with the most? Are we naturally selfish, rational, or free? Let's continue the discussion in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into philosophy, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and see you next time.